Actually, it gives me a great pleasure to be here to moderate the session of today with big businessman, which I'm going to introduce shortly. I'm so happy. This is the first time I come to the Euro Tour after my graduation many years ago. So I'm so happy to be there and moderate such an important session. As Wafa just mentioned, the session of today is a very important session, and we call it on the far side of today's sessions because it speaks about Africa. Africa is the hot topic nowadays, and everyone wants to know about Africa. What are the successful stories? How can we make real economic integration with the rest of the African countries? Allow me to introduce the panelists of today. We'll start by Mr. Ahmed Sewedy. Mr. Ahmed Sewedy, you can join us on board. Mr. Ahmed Sewedy is the president and CEO of Sewedy Electric, the largest worldwide provider of integrated energy solutions. Ahmed Sewedy holds a BS in electrical engineering from Cairo University and has long and extensive years of experience in the electricity and energy industries. He's the chairman of the Egypt-China Business Council and a board member of the German Chamber of Commerce and the Egyptian Businessmen Association. Please, Mr. Ahmed Sewedy, you can have a seat. It looks that they don't allow me to sit today, so we'll only sit the panelists. Okay, I also invite Dr. Shireen Helmy. Dr. Shireen Helmy is the CEO of Pharco Corporation Egypt. He is as we said, the CEO of Pharco Corporation Pharmaceutical International KSA and consultant of Presidio Pharmaceuticals, the company that discovered a new HCV drug, who will join Business Forward's annual event. Dr. Sherine holds a BSc from the Faculty of Pharmacy, Alexandria University, an MBA from the Arab Academy for Science Technology, and a doctoral degree in business administration from AAST. He is considered one of the most important businessmen contributing to the development of education, the pharmaceutical industry, and economic growth in Egypt. Also, we have today on the session Dr. Tarek Moharram, CEO. Dr. Tarek Moharram, we invite you to come. Are you here? Okay. Dr. Tarek Moharram? Okay. Okay. Dr. Tarek Moharram is the CEO of Elevate Private Equity and a healthcare veteran with over 14 years of experience in managing, developing, and growing medical entities in Egypt. Mr. Tarek Moharram managed the diagnostics chain Niles Kane and Labs company until launching Elevate Healthcare Africa, the largest healthcare fund in Africa, aiming to actively pursue investments in healthcare spaces across the continent. Also, we have virtually Mr. Mohamed Dangote, the Executive Director, Dansa Holding Nigeria. Mohamed Sani Dangote is the Executive Director at Dansa Holding Ltd. Dangote, holds a BA in International Business from Regent's College University. He took the role of MD for Dansa Foods Ltd., making costs cuts, putting controls, setting up a clear strategic plan, and securing new funds for the company before handing it over to new management. He has also developed an in-house software application for managing Saga CNG operations, which is being packaged and sold to other gas companies worldwide. We now welcome all the panelists. Okay. So, as I mentioned at the beginning of this session, this is a very important session that speaks about the African continent. The experience of 4 big giants in the African continent. I've dealt with, following my career, I've dealt closely with some of them, and I've seen the hell of efforts they were trying, and the vision first they had in the continent, and the perseverance to do business with the rest of the African countries. And not only this, trying really to make it work and a success story. So maybe we shall start with Mr. Ahmed Sewedy, who I know him very well from 2009, or when we really started the first transaction together. And I saw in Mr. Ahmed Sewedy at that time a real potential of a businessman, hard worker, and he has a vision for the African continent. At that time, it was a rare story to find, to find a credible businessman who wants to go into the African continent. African continent for us, unfortunately, it's a black box for all of us. We don't know anything about Africa. Our education really was not really focused on the African continent. And nowadays, you know, after President Sisi, we've seen a dream coming true that now we have the policymakers are really keen to go with the rest of the African countries. So we'll take this session as a real case study and see how the big giants in the African continent, they've moved and moved successfully in the African continent. What was the secret actually? So maybe I'll allow Mr. Ahmed Sewedy to start to speak about his experience in the African continent. How did you get the courage of going in Africa at the time of no one was thinking about the African continent? What was really your vision to go there? How it was developed? How did you overcome all the challenges at that time and to work and invest in the African continent? Thank you.
طبعا متشكر عشان اعطي هذه الفرصه. Thank you very much. I'm Ahmed Sewedy, CEO of Sewedy Electric. We are mainly a company focusing on manufacturing cables, transformer meters, and also working on the infrastructure, mainly water, electricity, and other infrastructure business. طبعا since we have I remember in 2000 there was the market in Egypt was a bit shrinked. And since the market shrinked, so we have to shrink. So we thought where to go after this. For the first way, we said either to go to, of course, to work in Europe at export, or to work in the Gulf region, or to Africa. So we said to work there, we have to have a presence. So we began thinking about Africa from this day, since 2000, and really, so we went make some visits. We found that Africa there's a lot of challenge. It's not easy at all. We have to think with a different way than working in the Gulf region and in Europe. In Europe mainly, our biggest market after Egypt is UK, mainly for our products. We export to UK, exactly the main market after Egypt. But there, I go there and I visit UK mainly once every 5 years. So since they know what they want, they need the price, they need the quality, so we send the products. In Africa, it's totally different. To go to work in Africa, there's a lot of engineering need to be done. First, you have to go to the country to see the needs of the country, to see what is the real needs. Because mainly, you specify for them their needs, and you put for them the technicality and tell them how you can help them. Mainly, we do, mainly in Africa, the engineering, the supply, the erection, and also mainly we are supported by Afri-Exim and other banks, but mainly Afri-Exim to supply even with the financing. So to work in Africa, you have to give the complete solution and to be available on ground. And mainly most of the countries, we have people on ground, people on high level, sit to discuss with the government to see their needs. And if we are able to make local manufacturing, we do there. And also the most important, the country see the benefit of the presence of your company there. So they support the company, they support the operation, and they try that you grow. So we have also in most of these countries, social responsibility, either on the medical side, either on education side. And of course, one of the people who are supporting this medical side, of course, is Shireen Helmy. We are partnered together in some social responsibility in Africa to supporting the African country. So this is the mainly how we think about that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ahmed Sewedy. Now this will take us to Dr. Shireen Helmy. Dr. Shireen Helmy, your company is an inspiring example of an Egyptian pharmaceutical manufacturer, and you did incredible work in the national effort to treat 1.5 million hepatitis C patients in Egypt. We know you have a similar dream for Africa. Is it better to aim to expand pharmaceutical exports to African neighbors or to establish production plants there? Which brings more benefits to you? Thank you.
الحمد لله رب العالمين أنزل الكتاب بالحق وبدأه بقول اقرأ والصلاة والسلام على الهادي الأمين وبسم الله الرحمن الرحيم نبدأ. When I attended the United Nations Secretary General High-Level Panel for Access to Medicine in 2017, there were 100 attendees, multinational companies, WHO, WTO, WIPO, US government official, patients, patent officers, and they said they were meeting for 10 years, but each one was pulling to a side. So I was the speaker number 99, so I started by to P or not to P, that's the question. To patent or not to patent, that's the question. Life gains versus trade gains, that's the question. And as you know, by the year 2033, the least developing countries will have no more waivers for patents. So if there is an epidemic disease or something crucial, what can we do? So I learned from Prophet Mohammed when someone asked him and he said, my mother told me to do so, and my father told me to do the opposite. What shall I do? He said, obey your mother and don't disobey your father. So what we did is we went with the patent laws, but at the same time, we made a new group from government officials like Thailand and Malaysia, DNDi, Drugs for Neglected Diseases Initiative, who are working on the diseases like Chagas disease in South America, like sleeping sickness in Africa, because multinational does not spend a lot on this. And we made the first South to South collaboration and the first new drug application and registered not only in Malaysia, but also in China, and now under registration in Russia, Brazil, and Argentina. So we made a new product to save lives because no patient should be left behind. In trade, if I give you $1 and you give me what's worth $1, each one of us will leave this hall with $1 in his pocket. But if I give you an idea and you give me an idea, each one of us, of all of us, will leave with 2 ideas in the head. If I have love and care for you and you have love and care for me, the result will be exponential because people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. With hepatitis C, let me tell you, on the 26th of January with the World Economic Forum, I had a small call for 3 minutes. They were discussing the effect of COVID-19 on hepatitis patients. I said there is bad news that after curing Egypt from hepatitis C by the year 2020, we attended the World Economic Forum in South Africa, and we mentioned 2025 Africa will be from hepatitis C. Unfortunately, COVID did not make us travel or go from one country to the other, so this was delayed for a year and a half. But the good bad news is that there was 1.9 people passed away from COVID, yet there is 1.5 million people passing away every year from hepatitis, but these ones pass away in 10 days, and these ones pass away in 10 years, so nobody takes care of them. So what we did in Egypt is we raised the 4 Ds to 14 Ds. We know in health, we have the doctors, the drugs, the diagnostics, and the dorms. We raised them to direction and political will when President Sisi mentioned he wanted to eradicate the thing. Discoveries, how to produce the API, the raw material, and make economies of scale to cut the price down from $1 million a kilogram to less than $1,000 a kilogram. So we became 1 per 1,000 competitive. diplomats, donors, data collection, lots of these, we brought them together in an ecosystem that can save humankind. After succeeding in Egypt with the Khalid Mikati link, we met the president of Senegal, we met the president of Uganda, we met vice president of Congo. And what we introduced also to Egypt with Halil Wuttammin, which was transferred by His Excellency President Sisi to Meet Million Saha, 100 million lives. And 60 million Egyptians were analyzed for hepatitis C, also for diabetes, hypertension, obesity. And the Ministry of Health did a very good job in making a health map for Egypt, which now we want to mimic in Africa. So President Sisi said, we want to cure 1 million people in Africa, and we will make the same system transferred to other countries. When we made the presidents, we mentioned in doing the same, not only in screening the patients, but also in making it happen and cure. As Ahmed said, we're working together in something called Solera in Africa, where there is no electricity, 20,000 inhabitants, and he makes something very nice, solar panels with a small clinic, lab, pharmacy, training session or center for young people to make small enterprises, feeding young kids with pasta where we produce here in Egypt for free and giving them life. How to touch people in Africa and how to reach them is very important. You asked whether we will produce here or there. As I said, on 2033, we have to be producing in Africa. 90% of the pharmaceutical products needed in Africa is imported, yet 70% of which is outside the African continent. So every year in the coming 10 years, we should be building a new factory. So we are planning in doing so, not only in building, because with the economies of scale, we can supply champagne on beer's budget. Because with pharmaceuticals, you have to have high quality product and high efficient machine. You cannot be in the middle of somewhere in Africa and you don't have spare parts or the machine is not performing well. So you should get the Rolls Royce and you should produce in economies of scale. We will start with certain areas in West Africa to reach 200 million, in East Africa to reach another 200 million, and so on. So it's a complete plan, not only in production, but also in technology transfer and education support. President Sisi with the EJUST, the Egypt-Japan University for Science and Technology, with the JICA and the TCAD, is offering 150 scholarships for African postgraduates to come and learn, not only to learn research and new eras, but also ethics with the human resources of Japan. In Japan, after the Second World War, the GDP per capita was $16 per annum. They had 3 resources: earthquakes, volcanoes, and human resources. They used it. After the Second World War in 1950, they made a strategic meeting and they said, what shall we do? The country is broken down, we don't have resources. They said, we will work hard in the coming decade to become the first country in the world in textile. And they did it. In 1960, they met again and they said, we would like to become the first country in the world in steel, although they import all the ore, handle it and export it for tens of thousands of kilometers, and yet becoming competitive.
Dr. Sherine, I know that, this is a real successful story. What Dr. Sherine is just talking about, it seems to me like a dream that I dreamt of more than 2 decades, to see the private sector, to see the big Egyptian businessman convinced of doing business inside the African continent be courageous enough to put their money inside and do projects? Because the most difficult step is to ask a businessman, go and take your money and do it in a different country. This is the most difficult. Trade is easier. But again, this trade was not there. So really, Dr. Sherine, I don't know how to thank you and thank you for these initiatives and the vision that you have. And we really wish you all the best and continuous success in the African continent. This maybe will take us to Mr. Mohamed Dangote. We wish if he was here with us, but I know the travel is creating a lot of constraints nowadays. And Dangote, for those who might not know, this is one of the very big companies and holding companies in Nigeria. They are really successful. Also, we as under Afrexim Bank, we had so many successful stories together. And I'm so happy that Mr. Mohamed Dangote is here present with us. As I mentioned, I hope if he had made it physically, but anyway, you are with us virtually. So now, Mr. Mohamed, Dansa Holding is a Nigerian company working in FMCG, agriculture, oil and gas, and trading. From your experience, why do you think economic integration is lacking in Africa? Are there missed economic opportunities because of this lack of integration? The floor is yours, Mr. Mohamed.
Hello. Hi. Doctor. Dr. Christian, it was a pleasure to meet you and a pleasure to be here. Unfortunately, why I'm not in Egypt is because I lost my father, our chairman, and also the group vice president of Dangote Group, who passed away 3 weeks ago. So due to the Islamic rites, of course, until after 40 days before, unfortunately, I can go anywhere. He left a profound impact, of course, not only on what I'm about to say today, but in Nigeria, in Afrexim. I just came across his picture from, I believe, 1995 when they visit Tunis in the Afrexim office. And I know Afrexim also supported a lot of our projects, including the refinery for the Dangote Industries Limited. So back to your question, how do I believe that the economic opportunities that have been missed because of lack of integration? That really starts from the most fundamental areas. I remember when I was called to this meeting and I looked up Egypt, what is it that we can actually trade with Egypt and Nigeria? And I saw Egypt imports a lot of food. I look at my neighboring countries that come and they buy produce from Nigeria at the borders, and I see some other countries that I used to export to when I was working at Glencore Extrata in London. And I realized that for me to move an LPG tanker from Nigeria to Chad cost me more than I'm bringing a vessel of LPG from Cameroon to deliver it to the same Chad. And that tells you the kind of disparity we have. And you have to look at it from the most fundamental areas, in terms of infrastructure, in terms of even the political will to make sure these agreements we're signing come into reality. Because a lot of times we sign these agreements, but unfortunately, the fundamentals are not there and the will is not there to execute it. And you also look at what our dear brother, Assalamu alaikum, doctor said earlier, and that's Dr. Sherine, I believe, regarding human capital. Even if we want to do anything, I'm going to have to bring in human capital into whatever business I'm going to do. And in bringing that human capital, I'm going to have a lot of capital flight going out of my economy. In Nigeria, Dangote, at one point, we had over 5,000 Indian staff because we could just not have the talent in Nigeria. And you could see that by the kind of budget our country has, for example, in education. And when we talk about Africa, I think one of the fundamental areas, of course, is language. Language as well as travel. So when we look at business countries close to us, aside from Egypt, I can't travel to Equatorial Guinea. There's no direct flight. I have to go from Nigeria all the way to France, or to Ethiopia before I can come to Equatorial Guinea. These are some of the fundamental things, you know, and I think if you look at how Africa was designed, it wasn't designed for us to coexist. If you look at the colonial times that left their imprint and their infrastructure behind, it was designed for us to export. And we're still exporting our natural resources till today. So in terms of the opportunities that are missed, I cannot describe. It is exponential. We had a rice revolution in Nigeria. We're trying to make a tomato revolution. But before then, we were importing almost $4 billion worth of rice into the country. Our neighboring countries were importing, combined with us, almost, I think, $6 billion worth of rice. But now in Nigeria, we hardly import any rice. If you go to the north, it's bustling with industry. And I could just imagine what will happen if we're able to really sit down with the right intent of purpose, sincerity in our purpose, to say that we want to work together. We want to set up the infrastructures. We want to make sure we look at our industries. We want to look at our human capital and ensure that we coexist. We want to look at how do we trade currencies. If I'm going to make payments to any of my neighboring countries, getting my money out is next to impossible. So I could take that money, reinvest it, and also take products back to them, and vice versa. So I believe if we actually sit down and do this together as an African nation, not an African colonized nation, but an African independent nation, I believe the growth is exponential. Just for example, Egypt, we could export to you almost any food, not just Egypt, the whole sub-Saharan Africa. Nigeria's middle belt could feed the whole of sub-Saharan Africa. But if you look at all the countries that were here sitting on the panel, we're all importing our food. And that's the most basic, fundamental necessity to building any nation. Forget about the industries, forget about pharmaceutical, anything. If you cannot feed a nation, you are not going to have a nation. And I think Egypt found out a few times already.
Thank you.
So I believe this is for me the most fundamental areas.
Thank you very much, Mr. Dangote, and our deepest condolences for the loss of the dad, a great man. So we wish that you continue his success story in the African continent, and we also invite you to come and partner with the Egyptians. We have very big Egyptian entrepreneurs who are very much willing to come and collaborate and coordinate with you. Thank you very much.
Some good ideas already.
Okay.
Thank you.
The next one, unfortunately, I got a notification that we only have 10 minutes because of some urgency. So we'll go to first Dr. Tarek Moharram. He is the CEO of Elevate Healthcare Africa. Is that the pandemic has absolutely highlighted the crucial importance of ensuring strong healthcare system. With the high growth potential of some African countries, someday will surpass that of China. There is increasing demand for quality, locally provided healthcare. As you explore different markets across Africa, what opportunities have you found? Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure being with you here today. Big honor to be sitting with Dr. Ahmed, Engineer Ahmed, and Dr. Sherine. And it's a pleasure to listen to Dangote and my condolences to you, sir. And Dr. Ahmed Dawish also, I would like to pay him my respects being with us here today. He's a big inspiration, and it's an honor to speak in front of you, sir. So yes, about healthcare in Africa, that's the topics I want to try to focus on today, rather than focus on anything else. And healthcare is a necessity, in my opinion. It's a human right, and that human right, it is our obligations to try and make it accessible and affordable and of high quality in our country and beyond. And unfortunately, it's very interesting to see that that necessity has been underserved much harder and much deeper than other areas of economies that our elder inspirations here have well served their sectors. So I believe, without too much elaboration on Egypt, that Egypt had a very big maturity and a very big revolution when it comes to health services in the last 20 years, when the public sector has played a huge role in it, and also the government public insurance, whether through its old tools or its new tools. It is something that I'm very proud about as being an Egyptian citizen and an Egyptian provider as well. Going around Africa, to get to your question, we have seen that there are countries, many countries, that have a very high level of maturity, political maturity, that also have a very high level of stability, political stability, some diversification in their economies. I'm basically talking about, of course, Nigeria, but also Kenya, Ghana, Morocco, Senegal. And these countries, all of them, despite this huge improvement in their politico-economic systems, continue to be in deep shortage when it comes to healthcare services. Our services extends from hospitals to Center of Excellence and Diagnostics, to medical insurance, and finally to primary healthcare through retail pharmas. And we have seen that in many of these countries, like Dr. Sherine was saying, if we continue to build with all our powers from today till we die hospitals, we would not have scratched the surface of that need. And that's definitely an opportunity for entrepreneurs, like you've mentioned, but also it is a mission. And that's the best place to be. The best place to be is to be both serving a mission, a humanistic vision, mission, but also you are extending the soft power of your country, and also you are doing great business as well. So we're lucky enough to be in one of those sectors, really. There are huge opportunities when it comes to the private sectors, when it comes to healthcare. I'm going to mention Ghana one more time. There are less cath labs for cardiac stroke in Ghana than there is in Maadi. This is an example I always use. There is less MRI, there's zero MRI in Benin. There is one CT scan in Togo. Yeah. So the gap that is there is tremendous, and this gap is a gap of know-how. It is not an investmental gap. The capital is there, and many people have interest in those kinds of services, in this kind of production, but they lack the technical know-how, and they lack the appetite for getting out of their comfort zone. The return profiles of the opportunities that we discuss are huge, and we believe that we were able to gather from Egypt a large amount of veteran providers that if they export, like Mr. Dugati was saying, if they export their know-how to African countries, they're going to be having a huge impact on the healthcare, on human life, on our presence in those countries, and on the return of their investments. I will try to be short since we are limited in time.
But
yes.
I wish if we had more time on this one, but really the secret is get out of your comfort zone. Think out of the box. Be courageous enough to study the African markets and know where are the potential. The potential is tremendous and huge. And this is not what I'm saying. This is all the businessmen who were there and put, their hands in the investment and trade. They know that the potential is huge. It's a matter of vision. We have to have a vision for the African continent, study more Africa, and we have to collaborate, we Africans together. This is the time, and yes, we are late, but it's never too late. The last one, I'll just give 1 minute, because this is again something very hot that everyone is talking about nowadays, the AfCFTA, the African Continental Free Trade Agreement, and how the businessman in 1 minute time for all the panelists can tell us how really they can tap on this one and leverage on this opportunity of the AFCFTA.
With 1.3 billion people and trillions of dollars of GDP, I think we can do a lot together. In pharmaceuticals, we need some sort of mutual recognition between different countries. This will solve lots of things so that goods could be moving from one place to the other. Also, movement of people is very important, but this is something political. So I think Africa in the coming 3 decades could be double-digit growing, while the rest of the world is less than 5% growth.
Thank you, Dr. Sherine. Engineer Ahmed?
Yes, of course, with this, I believe that as Dr. Shireen mentioned, this will be a great opportunity, mainly for Egypt and for Africa and for South Africa. And we have to grab this opportunity really to grow and to grow our exports and to grow our cooperation and the relation with Africa.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Engineer Ahmed, just before we go to the next, do you think that the private sector needs to be in the discussions of the AFCFTA? So people, they don't take decision on the behalf of the private sector. What do you think on this one?
Sorry,
The private sector in the discussions of the AFCFTA, do you think they need to play a major role in the discussions and the policy growing of the AFCFTA?
I believe that without the private sector, we will not be able to work. I think the presence of the private sector is a must for this.
It's a must. And do you think it's there or not yet?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Not at all.
Okay, so I think we need to raise the voice of the private sector in the AFCFTA to be there as well.
That's
Thank you.
right. Yes.
Thank you. Dr. Tarek. Mr. Dangote?
Sorry, can you repeat the question again?
Again, the AFCFTA, how you as a businessman can benefit out of this AFCFTA agreement?
I think like what Dr. Shireen mentioned, we're a massive population in Africa. We have a high youth population with a lot of needs for fast consumer, moving goods, and trillions of dollars worth of trade and a lot of interconnected products in between. I believe there's a massive opportunity. For me, I know we have partnerships with Egyptians that will definitely work, whether in tractors for agriculture or other areas in pharmaceutical and healthcare. It's massive. But I think the key also is to ensure that the companies exploiting Africa do not use this as an opportunity to exploit and go behind the doors of other countries that are weaker and exploit the bigger countries. So I think we have to put real controls on our borders and our policies and real zoning in terms of how do we structure the trade agreements and flows and what comes into these countries.
Okay, thank you, thank you. Dr. Tarek, the floor is yours.
Thank you. So I'm going to try to handle it through a more broad idea of regulatory cooperation in Africa, because that makes it a little bit more relevant to our industry. And there are a lot of issues when it has to do with the accreditations of doctors, their right to practice their work within different jurisdiction. And there are also matters related to repatriation of capital and matters related to the currency risks that have to be dealt with, like Mr. Dangote was explaining earlier. And we believe that regulatory reforms, regulatory liberalization across Africa from Egypt to Sub-Sahara is very critical in this regard. I think it would make more and more role for the private sector, room for the private sector to grow. It will grow their business in a very efficient way, and they will be able to fly the services and the growth of their countries in a very impeccable way. And thank you for encouraging everyone to go out of their comfort zone and into Africa. I want to say that we face many of the very similar challenges, and it is just as complicated there that it is here, and as complicated here that it is there. And it takes dedication and hard work, and it takes the openness of spirit to explore a local area, an African country, and to be able to take a chance of the opportunities that are there. But I believe that we in Egypt are very well trained for this task, and that we will do a fantastic job the more time and the more effort we will dedicate for this task. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Tarek. On behalf of all the panelists, I would like to apologize for not being able to take questions and answers because of the limited time we were provided. But we are there in case you want any assistance, any inquiry about the African continent. I'm sure now that we have been introduced to the people the right people actually, who have real good experience in the field. Thank you very much, Dr. Sherine, Engineer Ahmed Sewedy, Mr. Tarek Moharram, Mr. Dangote. Thank you for your time and our deepest condolences once again. Thank you very much for all the audience and participants, and we wish you a very nice evening. Thank you.